Hey Club Scrappers, Tricia here at Club Scrap with another edition of our page making tutorials. This time we're featuring the You've Got Mail collection. I've got my instructions, got my trimmer, I have my accordion pocket file. If you're new here, make sure you get to the bottom of how all of that works. Keeps us organized while we're making all 8 pages at once. And here's my kit out of its bag. I've got some ribbons here and the postage stamps, buttons. Oh, those are so cute. I'm gonna set that aside. We have 3 of these cute little airmail envelopes and our pre-cut photo mats. Oh, and don't forget the brass envelope charms. There are 3 of those. Set that aside. So for starters, I like to just get those photo mats filed away right away. So layouts 1 and 2 will use one sky photo mat. That's this one, this color. It's got a really cool mottled texture to it, which you'll notice, and then also this pattern. And this pattern reminded me of the inside of an airmail envelope, actually, or like the security paper. And we'll put one of each of these in pockets for layout 1 and 2. Got 2 more pattern photo mats and 2 red photo mats. It's a nice cherry red we've included this month. Pocket 3 and 4. All right, then 3 black photo mats in layouts 5 and 6, and then 2 sky photo mats and 1 red photo mat. That should be all you have left in layouts 7 and 8. All right, next let's get our things in order of trimming. So what I like to do is get all those papers sorted so I don't trim the wrong thing. The first piece we will trim is what we're calling the airmail print, and that's going to be this guy right here, 1 airmail print, followed by 1 sky plane. You're going to love, love, love this craft paper like more than anything ever. It's really super heavy, 100-pound cover weight. 1 of those, and then 1 red plane. I just love the richness here. Then let's set aside the sheet of cut aparts with the border strips, and then the other sheet of cut aparts. Then as I usually go through, I start out with the base for layout 8 for my next piece that I'm sorting. So I'm going to grab 1 12 by 12 pattern plane, 1 12 by 12 collage print. So this is the other print. It's just so, so beautiful. Next, there should be another airmail print. Grab that. And another red plane. Moving on, we've got another 12 by 12 collage print, 1 craft plane, 1 sky plane, and 1 pattern plane. That should be the last of your stack. Now, as I was sorting this, I was stacking everything kind of upside down, facing down. So now when I flip it back to the top, I've got everything in the exact order it will be used, starting with the collage print. So my instructions indicate that we need to put this print into the trimmer with the large envelope in the upper left corner. Then we'll find 7 inches and slice. Both of these go into the pocket for layout 1 and 2. And I'll place them at an angle because they're such large pieces. The next piece is the sky plane, and I like to give you the easiest cuts first. So that first one was easy at 7. Now we're moving on to something more advanced. We'll make some 4x6s out of this. So we'll cut it 6 inches. Take the 2 pieces we just made, stack them, and we'll cut horizontally at 8 and 4. All right, now 3 of these mats will go into the pocket for 5 and 6. 2 of them go in 3 and 4. And 1 of them will go in 7 and 8. As we go on to the next piece, the complexity of the trimming will increase ever so slightly. All right, our first cut is at 11 3/4. That's going to give us a very, very tiny little strip. And it's a heavier paper, so just make sure you push down firmly on the stabilizing bar before you bring the blade down. Okay, moving down now to 10 1/2. And then 9 and 5 1/2. Now let's take this 5 1/2 piece, make it so it's horizontal, and we'll cut it 8 and 4. 2 of these rectangles you just made will go in pocket 1 and 2. one of them, 7 and 8. I'll take the next strip in my pile. It measures 3.5 by 12 right now. We're going to cut it into some rectangles. Our first cut is at 11, 8.25, 5.5, and 2 3/4. So here are 4 rectangles, all the same size. Put them in pocket 1 and 2, and this little guy, my friends, is a scrap. Next, I have a strip. It is 1.5 inches, and we're going to make a bunch of squares out of it. Now, you'll notice that we have some square buttons, so they just may have something to do with each other. A bunch of just little cuts here. The first one is at 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6, 4.5, 3, 1.5. And if you want, you can bring it down a little bit so you can see. Make sure you press down. And let's sort these little tiny squares out. Okay, 1 goes in 1 and 2. 3 of them go into 3 and 4. 1 goes in 5 and 6. 3 go in 7 and 8. Then we have one remaining long, wider strip. This goes in 1 and 2. And this really skinny guy is used on layout 7 and 8. Finally, the red plane. With this, once again, we have a bunch of really narrow cuts, and they'll all be used, so bear with me. 11 3/4, 11.5, 11 1/4, 11. So what we did just now is made 4 little tiny pieces. Just leave them there, let them stack up as we always do. Then 10, 9, 8.5, 4.5. Rotate the 4.5 so it's horizontal. We'll trim at 11 1/4, 7.5, 3 3/4. Gather up the rectangles. There should be 3 of them all the same size, and put them in pocket 5 and 6. And yet another scrap. Now we have this long narrow piece, or long wider. It's the widest of the remaining pieces. We'll trim this horizontally. This is 4 by 12, by the way. At 10 1/4, 8.5, 6, and 3. Now, you have 2 matching rectangles. Put one of them in 3 and 4, and the other in 7 and 8. Then you have another narrower rectangle. This also goes in 7 and 8. Now, you have 2 rectangles that are the same size. Stack them neatly together, and we'll trim horizontally. And notice again, I'm going to work from the actual inch line. I'm just going to line up the paper along the bottom edge of that line. And we'll cut it 3.5 and 1 3/4. This is going to give us 4 squares. One of the squares goes in 1 and 2, and the other 3 will go in pocket 3 and 4. Now we just have to sort out the remaining strips. There's a 1/2 inch strip. This goes in 7 and 8. There are 2 1-inch strips. They both go in 1 and 2. And then we have 4 really, really narrow strips. Put 2 of them in the pocket for 3 and 4, and the other 2 in 7 and 8. Moving right along. All right. I'm turning back to the front page of my instructions, where you'll find the distribution map of the cut apart we're about to cut. So every single item on the map should match up with our actual piece of artwork. And we'll place it into the trimmer so that the words special delivery are in the upper right corner. And your job is to find the little registration marks on the piece and trim accordingly. However, if you're kind of curious about where that would land you for your first cut, it's at 11 inches. And then right on down to 10, And from there, just follow those little gray hash marks. Let's get some filing done. This first together is the best place. Goes in 3 and 4. Then we have How the Days Fly By, 5 and 6. We have the postage stamps, 7 and 8. Some cancellations, those also go in 7 and 8. We have 2 airmail strips, 1 and 2. Each Day is a Gift, Open It, 7 and 8. And then Handle with Care, 1 and 2. That leaves us with one final piece, and I always try to find that smallest strip that I can cut easily through. I'm noticing I can't cut this without rotating. So just be really careful when you're trimming these individual pieces. This envelope is kind of an aged, vintagey envelope, 3 and 4. And then the snail mail, 1 and 2. And Oh, the Places You'll Go, 5 and 6. Let's pick up this next little section here with the Life is Good. This larger squarish goes in 5 and 6. And the Life is Good, 1 and 2. Then we have this larger vintagey piece, 5 and 6. Keep in mind that all those pieces can be used as photo mats. I'll trim this next strip. All right, Better Than Email, 3 and 4. The Way to a Girl's Heart, 5 and 6. Postcard, 7 and 8. Another less vintagey postcard, 3 and 4. And then, yep, snailed it. That goes in 1 and 2. One last strip to trim apart. Memories Delivered, 3 and 4. Delivered with Love, 7 and 8. And The Best Gifts, 7 and 8. All right, that's it for the trimmer. Let's get ready to do some dry fit assembly. So at this stage of the game, I've got my instructions out, and I slid over the next sheet of paper that's at the top of my stack, and that happens to be the pattern. Now again, when I say pattern, I say that it's very, very soft and barely detectable. Okay, so then what you'll also do is take the contents out of the pocket for layouts 7 and 8. So you have everything you need for the 2 pages. So then you just have to sort out what goes where. So you have 3 blues in your pocket. One of them is smaller, and that's the one that nests on top of the red photo mat for a little bit extra love and attention there. This postcard should have a mate that it will nest with. Now we have 3 craft squares. So for layout positioning, it's the squares that are level with this photo mat. And that tucks in just above that, and you'll see why in a second. Then, along the bottom edge, we'll place Each Day is a Gift, Open It, and then we have a nested craft strip onto a 1/2 inch red strip for a nice little divider between that and our cancellations. Best Gifts come in small packages. Now this kit has some beautiful ribbon. Now mind you, when I was assembling this, when I add all of my ribbons, I do that last. And I had just enough ribbon left when I got to this page to staple some to this little postcard here. Add this fully around with the ends taped on the back, and then also enough to make a 3-part bow. And I just cut one long piece for the 3-part and then one for this. So the other thing that I did before I completed this layout was added some stenciling along the top edge. I took the stencil that came in the kit and I placed it above the photo mat so that the hash lines that you commonly see on airmail envelopes were lined up with the top edge of the photo mat. And I took my ink applicator with some ruby ink and stenciled the red onto the paper. And then I cleaned the red off and repositioned the stencil so that the new hash marks would be in between the red ones. And then I stenciled with, I believe I used sapphire, but also ocean looks perfect with this. So let me just show you the final page. Here is, yes, this is with sapphire, but I think the ocean is even better color. I don't know, this looks like airmail to me. And then here's that 3-part bow with the edges taped on the back, and then the stapled ribbon right here. Now those 3 craft spots give a home for 3 of these adorable postage stamp buttons. And I adhered them to the craft square, but I also added some jute fiber to those, just a little tie of some of that black jute to finish that off. I love how this page turned out. It's really, really beautiful. All right, let's move on to layout 7. The remaining items that I removed from the pocket should fit beautifully onto this page. So above and below this strip, I've used the red. Now, these tiny little strips can be somewhat challenging to adhere because our adhesive, like my ATG, for example, is just too wide. Easy runners have those little tiny little pieces, but in this case, I adhere this piece first, and then I add a little line of our bookbinding glue to the bottom and top edges of this so I can adhere the red pieces. Finally, take 2 vertical mats here. You should be able to nest this delivered with love cut apart, and I'll place that here next to this smaller craft mat. Adjust placement as needed. Finally, I put a little jute bow on top of this darling little brass charm, and you can see the finished page with everything adhered is quite darling. You can dump everything out of the pocket for layouts 5 and 6, and the right side is going to start out with this airmail print. And across the top, I have 3 red photo mats. As a reminder, what I like to do when I'm attaching 3 things in a row is always use my grid ruler with the center to make sure that the placement is both equally spaced and level. It's just a nice way to do it. And with this particular measurement, 3/16 of an inch is the even placement on all sides. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm sorry. Next, you can nest this journaling prompt onto a black photo mat, and if you'd like, you can just take some of the jute ribbon and tie a bow around it. It's really, really sweet. This can also be used as a photo mat. Remember, like, the cut aparts are there for you if you need to easily finish a page, but if you've got a lot of photos to go around, just cover up the cut aparts. And then finally, we'll add this last photo mat right here, and then across, just kind of creating a little bit of separation between this half of the page and this half. You can once again use that hash mark stencil, and I'll show you on the finished layout how that turned out. In addition, I was able to take some earth ink and add the words express on here. Now take a little page out of my book. I was going to take a pencil and just draw a guideline for myself to follow as I was stenciling, but I'm like, nah, I don't need to do that. And I'm disappointed in the fact that this kind of heads downhill a little bit. So, you know, for what it's worth, just if you want to keep it level, you may want to draw a guideline. But I do love how that stencil turns everything into this really cool airmail look. And you'll see we have 3 words on there. We've got express, airmail, and fragile. So let's move on to the other companion to this page. The base of layout 5 is red. Looks like in the upper right corner, we'll start out with 2 vertical black photo mats nested with some sky mats. And then kind of tucked behind there, we have this how the days fly by. Now, positioning was determined because of the text being right here. That gives me some space across the bottom to use one of these really adorable little pre-made airmail envelopes with this tucked behind it, and then this sort of sitting on top of it. So we're just sort of building a little bit of a collage there. Then on the left here, we've got all the places you'll go. And then just above that, place one of your squares with a button, and same drill, you can put some of that jute. What I ended up doing was first taping the button to the square, then piercing with my paper piercing tool right through the buttonholes, and I added a needle to my jute, a needle that would fit through the buttonhole, and just sewed them on. That was the easiest way to get the fiber onto the button. This is the final glue down, also with the addition of one little brass charm with the tiny cute little bow in the upper right corner there. And here we have the tie-on. Goes through to the craft side. I'll take everything out of the pocket for layout 3 and 4. And I'll start out with this collage print as the base. The orientation of the print really doesn't matter. It's pretty, you know, ambidextrous. Okay, let's start out with 2 angled photo mats in the upper left corner. I'm gonna grab one more of these adorable envelopes in craft Okay, here we have the postcard. This is the vintage dark one, and there should be a mat that fits with it. And we're also going to be adding better than email to this, or just like a little trio of elements. If you want, you can ink the edges of these items. It's completely up to you. I chose to do that. And here is the finished, very simple, flat dimensional piece with my elements across the bottom. Craft is the base for layout 3, and we have quite a few elements here. Let's start out with the bottom, the border strip running across the bottom, and flanked with 2 nice narrow strips. Now, by cutting them narrow, that saved me a lot of red paper, because you know, you could just cut it so it nests, but this way I get a little more mileage out of my paper. Then let's sort of line up 3 cute little craft colored squares that have nesting companions here in red. This gorgeous metallic ribbon, I'm not sure if you can tell that it's metallic, but it is. It's really pretty. I just cut a small piece and made a small loop out of it, and then made sure the ends of the loop were uneven, and took a piece of tape and tape that loop to the back of the craft piece. Then nest that onto the red. You can do that for all 3. Then we have these nested, the sky 4x6 onto the pattern, and this little journaling prompt right here can be tucked in if you want, or just slide everything up. And then memories delivered on the upper left. I liked to ink the edges on that one to give it a little more definition. And once again, you can do your little loop ribbon trick or a staple trick, whatever you like to do. Here is the final page with everything glued into place. Layout 1 and 2. On the right side of this layout, we're going to put the narrowest, the 5x7 of that airmail print, and I'm doing it so that this envelope is at the bottom. However, it's totally up to you where you want that to be. Separating this area from the sky, I'm going to place a vertical red strip with the airmail print. Next, how about some photo mats? And look, when I trimmed this, I measured this area, and that's why this just fits in there so nicely. Take a craft strip and nest it with the handle with care, and put that just above, and you'll notice the spacing now in between all of these elements and the border strip. Everything is about the same, so that's kind of what I was after. Just above this, on my finished layout, I added some stenciling, and I'll show you that in a moment. Nest a craft square onto a red square and position that right here along with one of the buttons, and some jute, of course. If you'd like, ink the edges of this sky photo mat and add the yips, nailed it, right along the bottom. Here is the finished page, little loop of ribbon right here. There's my jute fiber sewn on to the button with a bow made also, and then some additional stenciling with the word fragile. So when you do this, stencil the word fragile first, and then add as many of those half chevrons as you can fit. This is layout 1. Let's begin by placing 4 craft photo mats along the bottom edge. With the help of a grid ruler, you can make sure that these are both level and equally spaced before you adhere them. And now we've got our red strip nested with the airmail strip. This piece will fit perfectly. I don't know if you could hear Karen sneeze there. Bless you. Okay, how about one of these cute airmail envelopes? Life is good. We'll tuck this behind here, this little snail mail guy at a little angle if we want. Make sure you make this shape, whatever shape that is. Fold it in half the way it wants to be folded. Add it right here. Grab your wee stapler. Cute, really cute embellishment there. How about a little brass envelope charm in that spot, maybe some leftover jute depending on how much you have left. We have 2 yards of it in there. There's plenty to go around. Take a look at the finished page. this is just so sweet. I also want to point out on the stencil there are a couple of other features here that we'll have to explore throughout the month. So we've used the chevrons and the text. This spot right here is intended to help you address envelopes. 4 lines of an address, perfectly straight, not going up or downhill like I tend to do. Then we also have some postage makers. This is for faux postage, and these are going to be fun too. We will explore how to use them, but aside from the obvious, you can still just stencil in a postage edge or a fake postage stamp on anything. Just don't try to put it in the mail. I hope you have a really fun month at Club Scrap with You've Got Mail. See you next time.